So principle number one. If you open up the Success Principles, chapter number 1, it's the foundation on which this is all built, is taking 100% responsibility. So I don't know that anyone in this room would argue with that, right? Make sense? But can you really say that you fully understand what that means? If you had to explain to someone else, well, here's what I mean by taking full responsibility. And one of the things I love about Jack and his work is he takes a concept like this and he really breaks it down. And in the case of responsibility, he uses a simple formula. And I remember when the first time I was listening to those tapes, the first time I was at that seminar in 1997, how powerfully this sank in for me. And this is one of the things that I've imparted to my children to see amazing results. The formula is E plus R equals O. And the E is the events in our life. Events like the weather, the economy, the people we're surrounded by, all the things that happen, right? We call it the world is worlding, right? The R is our response to those events. It's how we respond to what happens around us. And the outcome is the O. So the world does what the world does. We respond the way we respond, and we get the outcomes that we get. Make sense? Simple. So responsibility, taking 100% responsibility, is really zeroing in on this response issue so that we can create the outcomes that we want. Now, what do most people do? Where do most people focus? On the events, right? It's the economy's fault. If only the weather were better. If only my boss were nicer. Whatever, right? Most people focus on the event. And these are people who are blaming other people, other circumstances for the results that they're getting. And probably the most profound shift anyone can make in their life is to zero in and focus on the response instead of the event. Because for the most part, we can't do anything about the events, right? But we can do something about the response. And here's a couple of different ways of looking at that. One is blame. We all do it, right? I do. But the power is in becoming more aware of it and changing it. If we make a decision to give up all blaming, the economy, the president, the weather, whatever it is, it has a profound difference. You also have to give up complaining. You're all familiar with Martin Luther King's famous speech, right? The I have a complaint speech. Right? Think about it, though. Here's a man who had a lot to complain about. Where he was living, how he was being treated, the obstacles that he was faced with. He had plenty to complain about. But he wasn't a complainer. He was a dreamer. So his speech wasn't the I have a complaint speech. It was the I have a dream speech. And look at the amazing results that he created, despite the fact that he had all those obstacles that he was faced with. The other thing we have to give up is excuses. Some people are so good at making excuses, aren't they? It's amazing. It's almost like it's become an art form. But it just gets in our way. Here's a little cartoon. But we deal with it, right? Whatever we're faced with, whatever we're born with. Here's a young man named Matty Christensen. And I don't know how long ago this is. It's in one of the early Chicken Soup books. But he was born with no legs below the knees and no arms beyond the elbows. Lives in the state of New York. He was the pitcher with that little lacrosse stick thing on his left arm. He was the pitcher for his Little League team and took his team all the way to the state finals. Right? So here's somebody who has, he could make excuses. He could be complaining. Right? He could be a victim. But he didn't. And here's what he said when Jack interviewed him. There's a couple of amazing things that he said. He said, it's not an obstacle. It's simply a problem to be solved. 11 years old. He said, you have to give up all your excuses. You have to become solution-oriented. Right? So we hear these stories, right? These amazing stories. I mean, Jack has so many. I can't tell you how many I deleted out because we would have been here till noon. It would have been a lunch meeting if I told all the stories that were in this presentation. But here's the thing. Having been around this work, having been in this training, I want to share another story with you about someone who was in one of our events, who heard Jack telling stories like this, and then was faced with his own situation. And that was to have a daughter who was born with what's called a brachial plexus injury. And the brachial plexus is a set of nerves that goes from your neck into your arm. And during the birth, this girl her shoulders were pushed down so hard that it damaged the nerves. And she had limited movement and feeling in her left arm. And she was told by the doctors, all the things she wouldn't be able to do. She wouldn't be able to play sports. She wouldn't be able to put her bra on. She would have this and that and all these things. But because her parents had been around this work, had heard stories about people like Maddie Christensen, they approached it differently. So this is that little girl pitching in softball. And catching the ball with the left hand that can't move fully. She can't reach up and make a catch. She can't do things. But she compensates, she focuses on what she can do, not what she can't do. That's my daughter Lisa, who was born 2 months after the first time I came to Jack's workshop. First time, 2 months after I heard all these stories. And again, my wife and I were fanatical about not making her a victim, not being victims ourselves, but focusing on possibility instead of limitations. That's an old picture, but isn't she cute? Oh, this is something else. I love sharing this with Jack. This is part of, she must have been 4 years old or something, but this says, if you can't read, if you need a translator, it says, I like myself. And again, so much of Jack's work is focused on self-esteem. To have a child who would be willing and able to just express herself that way is so powerful. And for me, being around this work and seeing it show up as a parent in those ways has been fabulous. So E plus R equals O. Are we committed to changing our responses instead of focusing on the events? Okay, so there's a few things we can change. 1 is our behavior, 2 is our thoughts, and 3 is imagery. So let's look at a couple of these. First of all, our thoughts. I'm going to ask everyone to get a partner. And if you, just turn to someone next to you or behind you, and if you don't have a partner, raise your hand so you can find someone else who has their hand up and match up with that person. So everyone get a partner. If you don't have a partner, raise your hand. Does everyone have a partner? An odd number? You guys, can you? Here you go. You guys partners? Lisa, can I ask you to step out then? Sir, if you would just come right up here. Oh, did you? You guys? Oh, I'm sorry. Then you guys are together, Lisa. There's 4 people here. I'm going to let you guys partner up. Okay. Shh. So thank you. I'll never be. It's amazing to me. Jack has been doing this for so long. He goes through that process of get a partner, raise your hand, and somehow it's always really seamless, but there's something about the way he does that. But if everyone has a partner, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you to share with your partner the things that you can't do. So here's how it's going to work. If Bobby and I were partners, I'm going to start and I'm going to say, I can't get up early in the morning. Okay? Although I proved that wrong today. And she's going to then say something that she can't do, which would be?
I can't not sleep all night.
Okay. And then I'm going to go again. I'm going to say, I can't seem to slow down when I'm driving. Okay? And we're just going to go back and forth. I'm going to give you about 1 minute to just go back and forth and say whatever comes to your mind. There's no right or wrong answers. Just share with your partner the things that you can't do. Make sense? Okay. So 1 minute. Go ahead. I can't. Doesn't that sound nice? Isn't that better than stop? Okay, so now we're going to switch gears a little bit, and we're going to approach the same issue in terms of limitations, but a little bit differently. And I'm going to ask you with the same partner to do the same activity. You can either say the same things or if anything else comes to mind, except this time instead of saying I can't, you're going to say I won't. Okay? Or I choose not to. So for me, it would be I won't get up early, or I won't slow down when I'm driving. Okay? So same thing, 1 minute. Just, whatever comes to mind, there's no right or wrong answers. Just share with your partner the things that you won't do. Okay? 1 minute. Go ahead. So did that feel any different? Just raise your hand. I'll call on a few people. How did that feel different to say I won't versus I can't? Right? To be aware that I have a choice. Right.
I refuse to go back to my first wife.
That's a whole different deal. We don't have time for that one this morning. Fortunately, I think your second wife is in the room, right? Whew. Okay, that's good.
Ours actually changed from negative stuff that we weren't doing to positive stuff we were doing. We started doing.
Okay, so shifting into the possibility of it. Beautiful. Anyone else?
Yeah, we found we were resonating in a whole different level. More positive, happy.
Okay, so it changed the kind of communication that was going on. So this one simple word, to go from can't to won't, to make that choice, to have that awareness, to take that responsibility, to make the choice instead of feel like a victim, like it's some outside thing, profoundly changes the approach that we take, in a lot of cases, the results we get. So we do that just to share with you physiologically in your body how it can make a difference to make this kind of choice, to shift into taking responsibility and out of blame. Make sense? Okay. So I should kind of give you a disclaimer too, again, because we started with 180 slides and I scaled it down pretty good. We are going to go through these quickly. Part of the decision that I made last night was that I want to give you as much as I can in our time together this morning. We'll also give you the opportunity to stay connected to Jack and his work in a couple of other ways if you're interested in learning more. So we talked about what the difference was. So that's success principle number one, kind of a glimpse at this idea of responsibility. And once people get to that point of being willing and able to take responsibility, it becomes really important to identify, okay, well, now that we have this new power, this new awareness, how are we going to focus it?